Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I am Kevin Telek Marston, and it is my pleasure as president of the Society for American Soccer History, also known as SASH, to welcome you to our June 2026 First Friday session. Founded in 1993, SASH works to promote, facilitate, and disseminate research into the rich history and heritage of soccer in the United States. You can find us best in two places, on the web at ussoccerhistory.org and on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter X, and Blue Sky. Please follow our First Friday sessions at hashtag FFSS and post about them. A reminder that our SASH website, which is maintained by Ed Farnsworth, has many excellent resources that includes also a growing collection of digitized resources, ranging from archives and featuring fascinating clips of early American soccer heritage. We encourage you to support our ongoing crowdfunding campaign to digitize more material and showcase U.S. soccer history. All of our sessions are available on YouTube and also as podcasts. A big thank you to Brian Korstadt, who leads our amazing volunteer service to transform them into podcasts. Are you working on something that you might like to present in a future SASH session? If you are, then please reach out to the SASH board or to our info@SASH email address. All ideas are welcome from current or future members to be. If a shorter format would interest you, to float some ideas and maybe you're not ready to present for 20 minutes, we can also organize shorter sessions with several speakers. And if writing is more your thing, then we welcome written contributions for the SASH website on all areas of soccer-related history. If you're not a member, please join SASH through our website. We welcome new members with open arms and friendly feet. Please visit the website and click on the Join SASH tab so you'll be able to be eligible to receive our newsletter. And for this upcoming World Cup summer, members will be able to join a WhatsApp World Cup Heritage and History Happy Hour group, where we will try to continue conversations online and discuss the ongoing events of the World Cup in a historical perspective. So on to our speaker today. Freshly off of the press awards in Long Island last night, our speaker is Michael Lewis. And if you follow even just peripherally the soccer news, then you will have come across Michael's writing. He's a native of Brooklyn, New York, and began his career at the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle in 1974, covering the Rochester Lancers of the NASL, Pele's first NASL goal, and his final match. He's been a soccer columnist at the New York Daily News, an editor and publisher of multiple soccer weeklies, and currently the editor at FrontRowSoccer.com. He regularly contributes to Soccer America, The Guardian, The Athletic, ESPN, CBS, World Soccer, 442, Forbes, and The Washington Post. We are also blessed to have you, Michael, as a SASH board member. So as we prepare to kick off the World Cup in 1 week, Michael will discuss his 10th book covering the history of this great competition, its most memorable games, and how the tournament has changed over the past 4 decades. Michael, we are thrilled to have you. The floor, or rather the stadium, is yours.
Kevin, thank you very much for that very nice introduction. Yes, this book came, the idea for this book came rather late in the process. It was probably late September, early October. I figured it out. Hey, I've covered the World Cup for 40 years. I've covered 8 World Cups. Maybe I could write a book about it. Maybe it won't be original stories, but all the stories that I have written about players, games, coaches, referees, the media. So I double-checked with my boss, who happens to be my wife, Joy, because she would have 51% veto power on this because she was going to be the editor as well, too. She said, yes, why not try it? And like I said, it was late in the process. It was too late to find a traditional publisher, so we decided we'll publish it ourselves via Amazon.com. Then came the big moment, going through all my stories. I saved a lot, many of them. Some I had to retype into the system because they were done in the traditional Soccer Week style or in Soccer Magazine. They were nowhere online. I wound up starting out with 16 or 17 sections. I knew it, as thick as the book is today, I knew it was going to be thicker, knocked it down to 14 sections. And basically, it's general about the World Cup. 2026, looking toward it, U.S. players to watch, U.S. legends, field players and goalkeepers, U.S. coaches, foreign players that I've interviewed over the years. That includes Pele, Eusebio, uh, Bobby Charlton, Gordon Banks, Yuri Yurkiev, so many players. I had to whittle that down as well too. International coaches like Juan Carlos Osorio and Carlos Alberto Pereira. There is even a section about referees, and no, they don't rant about. I'm not ranting about them, but these are personality features, including S.E. Bamahar's long night in Marseille when he got it right, although the rest of the world thought he got it wrong at the 1998 World Cup. There's a section even about the media as well too. Off the beaten path, stories that don't necessarily happen on the field. Some of my favorites have been running into Lamar Hunt in Japan at an airport, the Osaka airport, and while we were waiting for our bus to take us to Kobe, we sat and talked for 2-3 hours on and off the record, and I got this fantastic story about his World Cup travels and how he was looking at different stadiums for future venues in Major League Soccer. There was a time when I had an opportunity to be in a part of a roundtable situation with President Clinton at the 2010 World Cup in South Africa. And that was obviously memorable too. I even got a couple questions in, an educational experience for so many reasons. And there's even a chapter about the, again, 1998 World Cup, how behind the scenes negotiations between the U.S. Soccer Federation and their Iranian counterparts before the game, that first round match was played. A lot of political football, as I called it back then, happening. And Hank Steinbrecher tells an intriguing story considering what's happening today in the world. So, you know, the World Cup means so much to so many people out there. They see it today as this grand tournament, and rightfully so. I figured I would talk about my first World Cup because it was something special for me. I didn't know what to expect, and it's almost like it was competed on a different planet, a different situation. And I'll give you a sports writer's perspective, but I'll also give you hopefully some facts as well too. You know, you never forget your first game, first time with everything. I went for the final 2 weeks because my budget said I couldn't do it for the full month, but it was well worth it. My first game was Uruguay versus Argentina in Puebla. The press section wasn't really much to write about. It started raining like you wouldn't believe. We had to move from out of the open part of the stadium into seats in the back of the stadium. And I remember there was part of the stadium that was clanging in the back in the wind. The wind was actually forcing the state. Obviously, the Puebla Stadium was not in very, very good shape. So that was an interesting experience there. My first World Cup press conference, which was totally in Spanish, and that was not the language I took in high school. I took French, but you went there just to see what it was like. There was a journalist who asked a question that went on and on and on. And I was sitting next to the legendary Paul Gardner. And I basically whispered to him to be or not to be, because it was like a soliloquy. And I know the coach's answer was a lot shorter than the actual question. Paul got a little chuckle out of that, needless to say. My second game, a day or two later, was France-Italy, and this is a knockout round match. at a Estadio Olimpico in Mexico City. They didn't have assigned seating back then, believe it or not. I kid you not. They had only 700 seats. I shouldn't say only, that was plenty, but they were 1,000 journalists who wanted to watch the game. I fortunately got in, managed to find a seat next to someone, a journalist, a Norwegian journalist I met at the 1984 Olympics. But it was chaos. Today, FIFA would never allow anything like that, and I'm really surprised they even allowed it back then. I guess live and learn. My most memorable match that I think I've ever covered at the World Cup came in the quarterfinals between England and Argentina. And I think everyone who's on the call knows exactly where I'm headed to. It was the hand of God goal. Now, I was one of maybe 6 or 7 U.S. journalists who were covering the World Cup because the U.S. wasn't in it. So we got to the stadium a little late, and we managed to get seats so high up, I felt like we were on the roof of the stadium. We were that far away, but at least we got seats. And we were sitting on stone. There was no desk in front of us. Fortunately, we didn't have our typewriters or our Tandy computers for some of us who had them. Remember, this was just the start of the computer age as we know it. And okay, we watched the game. There was a lot of tension. You have to remember, a few years prior, there was the Battle of the Falkland Islands between England and Argentina. A lot of banners up there for both sides. Early in the second half, Diego Maradona, there's a high ball, air ball right in front of the Peter Shilton, the English goalkeeper, and boom, Maradona bats it in. Now, we're several hundred feet away, and all of a sudden, I'm looking at the linesman. I'm sorry, assistant referee, but to me, he or she will always be a linesman or lineswoman, looking for the flag because it's got to be a foul, a handball. Nothing. And my eyesight isn't that great. I said, it had to happen, and we were all pretty astonished by it. Several minutes later, of course, Maradona pulls off this incredible run through the midfield, considered the World Cup's greatest goal, and he meanders through and gives Argentina a 2-0 lead. They wind up winning 2-1. Now, this is before we had cell phones or instant replay, so we had to see both goals again. Back then, for us to do it, we had to go into the media room. I had to give up my press pass temporarily to get a tape to put into a video cassette recorder and watch both goals. And I was with several Americans. Basically, what we did was we timed the goal. I had a stopwatch at the time, and then we just played the goal slowly to see what I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself there. We played the first goal to make sure that Maradona punched it in, which obviously he did. Then we then looked at the second goal and then used a stopwatch, 9.1 seconds, and got every sort of move that he made to chronicle it properly. That's what it was like back then. I should let you know that I have had the privilege of covering every England-Argentina game since then. In 1998, when Beckham got the red card, and 2002 in Sapporo, Japan, which I'll get to a little later, when Beckham got his revenge. The thing about this World Cup, the 1986 World Cup, I think it was obviously in much simpler times. There wasn't billions involved. I don't think FIFA learned how much money they could wrangle out of a particular country. After one of the games at Azteca, the souvenir stands were not part of the stadium. They were on blankets. And basically, they had pins and all sorts of other small souvenirs and even soccer balls with flags of the country. And you could almost like negotiate, barter on what you want. So after one of the games, I decided, hey, that ball, the flag of the country, that's pretty cool. I could buy one for myself and buy one for one of my friends too. And I purchased both of them. They weren't much more than maybe $20 a piece or so. I get on the media bus that was going to take us back to the hotel, and two Italian journalists are looking at me and they're pointing toward me. And I'm thinking, oh man, they're making fun of the stupid American who had to buy a World Cup souvenir. And then one of them asked me in English, hey, where did you get that from? And I pointed toward the souvenir blanket, and he said, thank you very much. And they both got off to purchase probably their own souvenir soccer ball. So something learned about maybe I shouldn't have an inferiority complex as an American journalist at a World Cup. One thing I think I learned more than anything else is, because there was not assigned seating at any of the games, me and my American compatriots got to games early to get better seats. And for the final, we got there like 4 hours early, where we even saved seats for some of our American colleagues, which probably angered some other foreign journalists, because they were trying to figure out, hey, there are empty seats. How come we can't sit there? But live and learn. Today, different situation. I know that I already have credentials for the first U.S. game. I will have a seat somewhere at SoFi Stadium. I'm not going to call it the Los Angeles World Cup Stadium like FIFA does. Sorry. I don't want to confuse the public. But different situation, a lot more organized today. I talked about memorable games in the World Cup. Obviously, the Maradona game sticks out for obvious reasons. There are a few others as well, too. One would be, I'll start with an American moment, 2010 in South Africa. That occurred when Landon Donovan scored in stoppage time to give the U.S. a 1-0 victory over Algeria that boosted the U.S. from third place into first place, atop the group, and a spot in the knockout round. And that was a pretty big deal, because if the U.S. wound up tying Algeria, the U.S. wouldn't have even gotten out of the group. And I remember the sequence started in front of me. Goalkeeper Tim Howard made a relatively easy save, rolled the ball out. Josie Altidore brought it down. Eventually Clint Dempsey took a shot, saved by the Algerian goalkeeper, and Landon Donovan knocks in the rebound, and craziness begins. I tried to enjoy it for a few seconds. At the time, I was writing for the New York Daily News. I couldn't stay astonished at all. I had to go and write my story, this time on a computer, get it out to the Daily News as soon as possible. And then we would go to the mix zone and talk about what Landon went through and what the team went through in that match. I mentioned about Argentina, England, and it's a fascinating rivalry over the years. At the 1998 World Cup, they played another knockout round game. Argentina defeated England in penalty kicks. However, on the way there, David Beckham gets a red card and forces his team to play a man down. In that game, Michael Owen scores this incredible goal, close to what Maradona did back in 1986. Maybe not as long, but still a meandering run through the Argentine defense, but it just wasn't enough to stave off the Argentines. Beckham returns to England. in disgrace. He's nicknamed Red Spice. His wife Victoria was one of the Spice Girls, and eventually he rebounded from that. I got a chance to cover England and Argentina again, as I said before, in Sapporo, Japan. It was a first round match, but still it was a big deal because it's this grand rivalry between the European and South American side. There was only one goal scored in that game, and Michael Owen gets fouled in the penalty area. And I don't know how many people realize this, but the player who fouled him was Mauricio Pochettino. I don't know whatever happened to him, but seriously, the coach of the U.S. national team. David Beckham gets a chance to get some revenge, and he converts the ensuing penalty kick. England wins 1-0. After the game, obviously, Beckham is the one people want to talk to. I had befriended a gentleman from the British Broadcasting Corporation that they would always bring out players to him, and I would stand next to him and I would let him ask questions because he knew the team and the players better than anyone else. So here we are waiting for Beckham to come out, looking for his words of wisdom. He comes out, and I feel like half of Sapporo rushes towards us because we're just at the wooden barrier. And okay, Beckham starts talking about the goal and everything. I look down, and all of a sudden the wooden barrier is starting to bend, not in a very good way. It's bending toward Beckham, unfortunately. And I'm wondering, are we going to topple on him? Are we going to kill him? Are we going to get injured or killed in this? In what I call the best save of the tournament, I decided, I watched 3 or 4 Japanese security guards got on their hands and knees and propped up the barrier so we wouldn't topple on David Beckham. It's funny what you remember, but I'm glad I'm able to tell that story. Those are just some of the memories that I've had. I mean, I could go on forever about it. One thing I want to bring up is I wanted to select something from my book to read, and the book has so many different types of chapters that I don't know if it would be appropriate to read one over another, but I figured I'd read my introduction because it explains how I fell in love with the World Cup. And I think everyone has a story on how they fell in love with the World Cup. Mine took longer than maybe other people did, but I was just learning about soccer back in the day. So here's the first part of my introduction from my book, Around the World Cup in 40 Years, an American Sportswriter's Perspective. My love affair with the World Cup started unceremoniously. I watched the 1978 final along with several thousand fans on a giant screen at the War Memorial in Rochester, New York, witnessing Argentina score twice in extra time and spectators tossing what seemed to be a ton of confetti and streamers onto the field. That was the first of a unique doubleheader that Sunday, as I covered the Rochester Lancers Tampa Bay Rowdies game at Old Holiday Stadium. Why do I remember the NASL game? Well, Lancers head coach Dragan Popovich guided the team from the rooftop of the press box via walkie-talkie after he had been suspended by the league for 8 games due to a referee incident. I sat next to him and recorded his actions and comments during the match. It was the first time I had quotes in a story that I wrote immediately after the game. It's funny what you remember. I truly fell in love with the Mondial in 1982. By then, I had become, and I have this in quotes, more sophisticated and a student of the game. And sometimes when you can't have something, you desire it more. Case in point, I lived in Brockport, a college town west of Rochester. a nice home, a nice village, but no cable TV at the time. We were supposed to get cable TV that summer. ESPN would have a handful of games on. However, we did have a rotary antenna on the roof, and positioning it in the correct direction via remote control, pointing across Lake Ontario at Hamilton, Canada, I was able to get the early game from Spain in near perfect reception. As the afternoon wore on, the second game wasn't as clear and blurred out. Then again, beggars can't be choosers. When I went to the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle for my shift, I would savor all the wire service stories of the games of the day on a computer. Since there was no internet as we know it now, I did the next best thing. We had a Wegmans supermarket close to the house, and that supermarket sold out-of-town newspapers. I bought Toronto papers, the Los Angeles Times, and a few others. The LA Times featured the great Graham Jones. And by the way, please don't tell him I said that he was great, because you get even a bigger head. Back in the day of the actual newspapers, the Times gave Jones something like 1,200 words on game stories. Many times he would not even quote or use a quote in his coverage, instead describing the action, putting the game into proper perspective. It was almost like use your imagination reading his stories. So for the quarterfinals and semifinals in 1982, my ex-wife and I planned to take a vacation to Toronto, where televised games were more accessible. We watched the semifinal doubleheader. Yep, back in the day, they had the semis on the same day at a friend's house. We saw Paolo Rossi continue his incredible run by connecting twice in Italy's 2-0 win over Poland, and then witnessed one of the greatest matches ever, Germany's astounding comeback from a 2-goal deficit to France in extra time to win via a shootout. That was the game in which West German goalkeeper Tony Schumacher leveled France's Patrick Battiston and was not even awarded a yellow card on what should have been a red card offense. On the way back to the hotel, we had never seen a bigger celebration about the World Cup in North America, as seemingly every Italian in Toronto had gotten into their cars while proudly displaying a green, white, and red flag to celebrate the great triumph. I counted some 400 flags over several hours. We had walked around downtown Toronto as well, and it was pretty incredible. My World Cup fever was getting more serious. So that was my origin story on how I fell in love with the World Cup. Like I said, I think a lot of people out there, a lot of people on watching this and listening to this have their own stories. I'll be more than happy to ask questions, answer questions, or hear what your World Cup, how you fell in love with the World Cup. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. And I know we have you've got a whole lot more images that we'll be able to share through probably as we discuss some Q&A. First, I don't know if there was any other particular images that you'd like to touch on before we open up for the question and answer.
Some of those images were taken by my wife. Some were by me as well too. By the way, Joy was the editor of the book. She showed great patience and resilience, and we're still talking, and we're still married. She did a great job of making sure all the T's were crossed and all the I's were dotted, and much appreciated for so many different reasons.
Fantastic. Well, then we can go ahead and open up for any questions from everybody who's online. If anybody would like to start with that. Otherwise, I would love to pick up on one image that I didn't yet show there, Michael, which is, I'll pop it up here. It's, I won't even ask my question until we show it yet, but it's, here we go. This one. Because this is an absolutely fascinating image. So I wondered if you could just talk us through the significance of this, what it means, where it comes from, your perspective and your participation in all of this. If you can, an image which means 1,000 words. What are the words behind this image?
Yeah, obviously that is the great Bora Milutinovic playing chess in Cape Town, South Africa, uh, during the outside of proceedings for the World Cup draw back in December 2009. And again, this is back in the day when we didn't have, well, at least I didn't have a cell phone that had a camera. I'm trying to remember if there were cameras and cell phones back then, but I had a trusty uh, digital camera, and I was walking downtown and I saw this and I said, I got to take a picture of this. Um, and I sometimes as a writer, I'm very lucky and fortunate as a photographer. It's funny. Bora has always made a big deal about soccer being a game of chess, and he was quoted in one of the recent documentaries about the U.S. team, the 1994 team, about that as well too. And you've got to always be thinking, you've got to always be on your feet. And I think that is what a perfect photo to explain that. Not only does he say it, he plays it, and you could tell that he won a few pieces there too. I think it looked like he might have had a two bishops and a pawn and a rook. I could be mistaken. I don't know if he won the match at all, but he probably he, he probably made the his opponent think a lot.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. I think there's another few pictures that we didn't actually yet show. So I'm just gonna pull back on a few of these. Just if you want to comment one or two of these, since these are all obviously yours.
Yeah, this one is mine. It was taken at Belo Horizonte, 1987. Uh, I was one of several journalists with several youth teams that participated in the Pele Cup in Brazil. Professor Mizei organized it. I suggested to him beforehand, wouldn't it be great to have, to visit Belo Horizonte? I planted this idea. I figured it was a long shot. And he tells me I've gotten Walter Barr and Harry Keogh to attend from the U.S. and Wilf Mannion from England. And it was a surreal experience for so many reasons. Even way back 39 years ago, I was an historian, and getting a chance to see these gentlemen there, and Walter Barr explaining the sequence, where he threw the ball in, Joe Gaichin where he shot it. I felt like I was in heaven, and I had a tape recorder at the time, so I didn't have to take notes, but it was one of the most memorable moments I've had. And this wasn't a game, but it was three gentlemen remembering what it was like back in June 1950. And I spoke with Wilf Mannion too to get the English side of the story too, because we get so much of the U.S. side, and rightfully so. But it was such a memorable day for me, and believe it or not, one of the highlights of my career. You might say, aren't game stories? Yes, but to be there, yes, the game happened before I was born, but to chronicle this in a different way was exciting for me.
Outstanding. Thank you, Michael. So I'm gonna pop off the screen again. Is anybody else would like to pick up with a question for Michael?
Yeah, I had a question. Michael, thank you so much. It is a really wonderful stories, and I think that we can all kind of we all kind of jump back into we identify with those moments as well. And it's so neat to see your, behind the scenes or right next to perspective. Can you talk more about the interaction between Pele and Andrew Shue?
Um, boy, making me think that's 32 years ago. I mean, I think they hugged each other. I think they knew each other already, and Pele knew who I was. I think I've interviewed Pele more since he retired than he was with than he was with the Cosmos. But you know, uh, trying to remember, they talked about soccer, what was going to happen, about Brazil. Did Pele think that Brazil was going to do anything, win the World Cup, which, as it turned out, they did. Um, and, you know, eh, I had an opportunity to talk to Andrew, very, down to earth that day as well, too. We were in Central Park. We're filming some sort of I can't recall the exact session what it was. It was a few days before the World Cup itself, but it was a fun time. Um, Obviously, that isn't my picture. I think someone took it with my camera, uh, but I guess I kind of own the rights to it. But I wish I could uh, remember more about it. That's when I had more hair too. Yeah.
That's really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. I'll pull off the image again. There we go. Anybody else would like to pick Michael's brain on some of these transformations to the World Cup over the last 40 years? Obviously, the tournament has completely changed, as you said, Michael. It's such a different experience from an organizational perspective, from a sporting perspective, commercially, politically, etc. So I don't know if you wanted to speak maybe a little bit more about just the overall transformation. What are your key takeaways for how the event has really transformed from a journalistic perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I like the
If
fact
there's a
that
particular photo that you'd like me to pull up again, then let me know and I will pop it up on the screen.
I can't think of anything at the moment, but it's more organized, which is good. I mean, it was that this organization there in in Mexico. Um, there were some good things and bad things about it. For example, I think you showed before a picture of Maradona. I managed to get that close to him. After training, after Argentina training, I don't think you could pull that off today. Maybe you could see a big superstar in a press conference situation. Granted, there the media was obviously asking him questions in Spanish, but still to get that close to what turned out to be the player of the tournament, yikes. Um, Security has changed, I think, tremendously. I don't remember security going through my bags, and I don't mind. Hey, take a look at it, whatever you want. That's so important for obvious reasons. I don't think I have to go into that. The thing is that I don't like about to this World Cup, and I'm trying not to rain on its parade, is that the ticket situation beforehand, what the fans have had to go through, what fans cannot afford to go to games. I have to admit, I don't remember the exact prices in Mexico, but they were a lot more affordable back then. And I've written this, and I'll write it again about FIFA thinking that the U.S. it's an ATM, and they could just take money and money out of it. And I think, unfortunately, it might have turned off a lot of people about the World Cup. And I'm not just talking about potential new fans, but fans, supporters of the game that love the game, but they just say, I want to go to a World Cup game, but I can't take out a second mortgage. Um, and I understand FIFA needs money to continue for the next 4 years, but there's got to be a better way.
Well, I had a question. Compared to the last editions, maybe the past like two or three, what do you what did you see the prices like in those particular countries?
Unfortunately, oh, sorry.
No, just just compare in comparison to what we're seeing today, what we're going to be coming up against.
Yeah, we're not nowhere near $100 for a regular ticket. No way. I think they took a look at the U.S. and said, "Oh yeah, they have a lot of money, and well, a lot of people have a lot of money." And I've told friends, if you can go to a World Cup game, please do. And this is before the ticket prices were unveiled last October. And when I saw the ticket prices, I told some friends, I'm sorry for giving you that line, because I don't want to see you go broke. I think ticket prices in Qatar, and I did not attend that World Cup, but I think it was like $30-50 per ticket or so, which is reasonable, definitely. Back at the 94 World Cup, there were tickets going for $30 and $50, which is reasonable. Hey, listen, I understand the better seats are going to cost more, but just to be the experience of a World Cup match, and I don't care what country it is, because there's going to be so much enthusiasm in the stadium. I think I would love to see every fan experience that just once. And unfortunately, there are a lot of fans in the United States and even around the world won't be able to do it because of the high expenses.
Right.
So
I like what New York is doing. They're putting a lot of initiatives into lowering prices in a lot of different areas, whether it's for meals, tickets, or whatever. So the mayor's doing a great job, and it's great that he loves soccer. So
yeah, definitely the fact that he's played it, like you said, loves it, has favorite teams as well too. I'll give you an example of maybe the high cost of things at the World Cup. Traditionally, I've always liked to buy a jacket from the World Cup. The last one that I have was from 2010 in South Africa. It cost me $60, and usually they would cost $30 or $40. But I just said, "Hey, what the heck? It's a great souvenir." When I say jacket, a windbreaker. I haven't seen them any online yet, but they have World Cup shirts for $375, and I don't know why anyone would want to spend that much money for a World Cup shirt. Again, I think it's FIFA thinking that, hey, how much can we fleece out of this country? And I'm not even thinking about buying a windbreaker this time unless it's $60. So it's a sad situation. I'm sorry to go negative, but Mamdani's done a fantastic job of finding some tickets. And I hope some other mayors can pull that off too in their venues too, because the last I heard, there are still thousands and thousands of unsold tickets for the U.S. Paraguay game, their opener, which is astounding because it's a week from today. You would think the first game of the host team, that would be sold out already. But look at the ticket prices. They're crazy. Maybe they'll come down with this dynamic pricing that FIFA has invested in, but it's a turnoff, at least for me.
thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Anybody else would like to pick up a question for Michael? And then maybe, Michael, I'll grab one other of the images that we didn't have a chance to show earlier. And so let me just swap to the right one. I think it's here we are. Let me go back and share this. So this one, so we've got some unique stories as well in the World Cup here. I don't know if you wanted to speak to this one.
Yeah, definitely. By the way, my wife Joy took that at a training session. The U.S. national team. It could be maybe during the Confederations Cup in 2009. She might correct me later on that, but it's father and son. There's Bob Bradley on the left, Michael Bradley on the right, taking a break, and it looks like Bob is giving his son some instructions. One of my chapters is about the father and son relationship, which just happened to be a World Cup qualifying game against Mexico in 2009. Another 2-0 game in Columbus, Ohio. And after the game, Bob would not want to talk about Michael being his son, but he wanted to talk about Michael being a player. And I think was one of the keys for the success of the team, Bob not showing favoritism to Michael. And obviously, you wanted to show the rest of the team that he is just another player. As it turned out, Michael scored both goals for the U.S. that night. And it's a big deal. But he wouldn't say how proud he was of his son. Years later, I got an opportunity to ask Bob about that, and he did talk about him being proud of Michael, but that was years later. But I give Bob a lot of credit for not making a big deal about Michael being his son at the time. Again, reminding the team everyone is on an equal standing.
Great. Oops, hang on. There we go. Thank you, Michael. One other thought, just one last question in terms of the structure of your book. When you were putting it together, perhaps what were some of the biggest challenges in sifting through all of not just the material that you've worked with and written, but your own memories of working through so many different events? And if you could talk us maybe just through the process of putting the book together and writing it, I think that might be quite interesting.
Yeah, I knew that I didn't have enough time to get very many original stories just because of the time factor. But because I had written about 8 World Cups and the fact that I had to get permission from various newspapers and publications. Soccer America was great. New York Daily News was fantastic. Soccerly as well, too. Photographers such as Andy Mead, John Van Worden, Bob Plant. I appreciated that, first of all. That was so important to get all those permissions. There was one website that never got back to me. I'm not happy. I'm not going to mention them because they don't deserve to be mentioned. I'll talk about that off the record. But seriously, there were some slam dunk stories that I knew, okay, I'll put this here, put that there. The book is 130 chapters. Please don't get intimidated by it because it's a little more than 500 pages. So it's an average of 4 pages a chapter. And you could bounce around from chapter to chapter. At one time I had 153 chapters, and it was not easy cutting them down. Oh man, this is such a good chapter, but it loses out to another one. And sometimes it was a past U.S. soccer player. I originally, I think I had 25 current soccer players. And I cut that down to 20. 15 are on the roster. Unfortunately, Patrick Ajumong was injured, and Diego Luna, who I think should be on the roster, obviously didn't make the team, even though I think there's an interesting story there about his grit. But it was just, it was almost like an elimination. It was a qualifying draw. What chapters will make it and what won't? I have a pretty good memory. There were a couple of stories I found that saying, gee, they don't remember writing that, but it had my byline on it, so that's fine. I should also mention that I also had chapters from Big Apple Soccer and Front Row Soccer, of which I was the founder and editor of as well too. And it wasn't easy, like I said, leaving out some chapters. After I made the list and we put everything together and it was edited, there were a couple of chapters or stories that I thought about. I'm thinking, damn, that should have been included. It's not going to kill the book by any means, but I figured I wanted to write something that had personality to it. Yes, there's a section about U.S. soccer history that needs to be in there, some basics, but I think it's more fun to read about also the personalities of the game, whether it's players, coaches, referees, even the media too. There's a chapter about Grant Wall, who I had a long professional relationship with for many years before his passing at the 2022 World Cup. Jim Trecker, who was in charge of the 1994 World Cup to get the message out. And it really, that chapter puts things into perspective of his challenge back then, because people didn't care about soccer as much as they do today. It is a different universe right now. So I figured I figure I got 95% of the chapters or the stories I wanted in, and maybe 5% that should have made it, but it's not the end of the world as well too.
No, good. Thank you, Michael. You'll just have to change the format and like FIFA did for the World Cup and go bigger next time.
Oof. I'll tell you, I didn't, it's thick enough as it is, and I didn't want to turn it into a mini phone book. But like I said before, if you don't like this one chapter, maybe the next one you'll enjoy. I mean, everyone probably will have their favorite chapters. I had someone who's really not into the World Cup who recently bought the book, and he said, I really like chapter about 33 things that you could expect at the World Cup. And that's just from me being there for so many times that sometimes history isn't duplicated, but it does rhyme. You see a lot of things happen. So I think everyone might have their favorite chapters as well too.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michael. Well, if there's no one else that has any last questions for Michael, I'll just highlight again. Michael's book is available on Amazon, if I'm not mistaken, Michael, and you can get all the information through frontrowsoccer.com and as well through Michael's Substack on Front Row Soccer. So please do go and check that out and get your weekly preparation reading for next Thursday. So thank you very much again to Michael Lewis for an informative and fascinating reflective session, including 40 years of personal experience of living through this and writing through it. These types of sessions really help us all to better understand and stimulate more research on the history of soccer in America. So a reminder to tune in for our next SAS session in July, the 17th, Friday, the 17th of July. We will have the pleasure of having Mark C. Franick, who will be speaking about his new book, which is American Soccer Nation. So make sure you mark your calendars, and we will see you next month at the next SASH session. Thank you so much for everyone for tuning in, and please join us as always on SASH, your home for preserving heritage and chronicling the history of American soccer. Thank you, Michael, and see you all soon.